Today, the Republican nominee for the presidential election was found guilty on 34 counts by a Democratic judge in an extremely blue area. Now you'll think, well, he was found guilty, right, on all 34 counts. The judge said that the jury didn't need to have a unanimous decision, 1. 2, this case was very, very odd from the beginning, since he was gagged, and the judge told the jury very, very specific things that a judge usually doesn't say to the jury, because they're supposed to be impartial, just as the judge. And it's interesting because if you look into the judge, you'll see how he is clearly a hardcore Democrat. Has been a Democrat for years, is friends with multiple Democrats. His daughter is a Democrat operative in the sense that she is a part of organizations that are specifically anti-Trump, pro-Democrat, basically donors. You'll see, maybe the judge won't change his mind because of his daughter, right? Well, if you think of it in the way with George Soros, how he funds multiple district attorneys around the country, multiple judges. He funds their campaign. He did it with Alvin Bragg. He donated $1 million, basically through a dummy company, in order for them to give it to Bragg, so it's harder to track down. So that's basically how George Soros funds different district attorneys and judges, and how he funds their campaigns. Because if you give a small district attorney, or even a mayor, $1 million over the person he's against, it's very hard for that other person to even come close. This place is so deep blue that almost no matter who you pick up off the street, because it's basically 80% Democrat, you're basically screwed out of getting an actual fair trial. Really, at no point did it ever look like he was going to be found innocent, not because of any actual wrongdoing, because there wasn't, but because of the judge, the conflict of interest with his daughter, how she basically fucking runs Democrat organizations, funding organizations, against Trump specifically, in a blue area where you'd have to search far and wide just to find one Republican or one Democrat that isn't completely fucking insane. And then when you look at it with Stormy Daniels, by the way, her profession is basically lying and playing a character and never actually being herself, because, you know, porn stars have to lie. That's why they're such bad actors, because they're not good actors and they have to lie. Which, if you guys didn't know, she actually signed a legal document before, saying how her and Trump never did anything together, never had sex, never did what she first accused him of doing. Which, let's be real, a billionaire having sex with a porn star isn't the craziest thing in the world. It's honestly par for the course. If someone like him has the ability to do it, and who she is, she's down, clearly, then honestly, who cares? And the fact that hush money is not illegal, by the way. Hush money is not illegal. So the fact that he's getting charged because of stupid hush money, which, by the way, his lawyer was the one that actually paid it without Trump's knowledge, where the lawyer took out a reverse mortgage on his own house to pay it off. He didn't tell anyone that he didn't tell Trump that he was doing it. Trump didn't know. He paid her off with his own money, which, by the way, still isn't illegal. And by the way, how can you take anything that this ghost-faced broad says at all? First, her job is literally to lie. 2, she said before that nothing happened between them, a signed legal document. And by the way, she has to still pay him, I believe, $500,000 from a previous case, which she hasn't paid him because she's never going to pay him, obviously, because she thinks that she's in the right. And if you've heard how crazy this woman is, where she thinks that she's a medium and somehow can, like, hear ghosts or something, it's quite insane. And then when you look at Cohen, who they got to testify, a known liar, where he's gone to prison for literally perjury, which is insane, that they would trust anything he says. Why would they bring him onto the stand when they know that he's perjured himself before? Where he also admitted on the stand to basically stealing tens of thousands of dollars and then claiming some of that money through taxes. So he basically stole around 80, maybe more than 80 grand from the Trump organization. But Trump's the guy that is getting indicted and was found guilty. But Cohen, now they're going to have to file lawsuits. They're going to have to go after him, which is just insane, because he was the one that committed any crime at all. And going back to the judge for a minute, this judge gagged a presidential nominee, because let's be real, even though the RNC isn't completely over yet right now, he's the nominee. There's no debate. Unless he gets fucking assassinated, he is the nominee. And he tries to gag the nominee, the front runner for the presidential election right now. Which I don't know how it's constitutional, which I know it's not, but let's play along with the judge. I don't know how it's constitutional to gag a presidential nominee in any way, because how is that not election interference? If a nominee cannot speak, he's not allowed to do rallies, or he's not allowed to... How is he allowed to debate if he's gagged, right? Which I don't know why judges are allowed to be biased. I understand you're going to have support for a certain person or a certain side, but your job is to uphold the Constitution, uphold the law, uphold the order. You know, judges, they yell order in the court. And the judge didn't allow all of the evidence to be brought forward from the defense, which again, doesn't surprise me, but I don't know how that's even allowed. A normal person would be screwed if they had these charges, because they would either have to pay money, or if they're going to go super hardcore, they would get jail time, which it's not a violent crime. You shouldn't get jail time, but the judge might actually give him jail time on, I believe, July 11th, which is when the trial date is. Which I believe it's 4 days before when the RNC decides on their nominee, which is just hilarious, because they're trying to push all of this to finish before the election, just so people look at him and think he's a bad guy, so they don't vote for him. Because apparently Trump is such a bad person because of just fucking mean tweets, and you know, Rosie O'Donnell is apparently their queen at this point. He's not allowed to say anything about anyone. So they hate mean tweets, so they don't want him in office because of mean tweets, and you know, he says China, it's from China, which we all knew it was. Which most people, their attention spans are razor thin. Them just reading certain things, even if it's out of context, is going to make them hate him and just never vote for him, because they have low IQs, to be honest. But they don't actually look at the policy. like the border policies or the economic policies or anything that relates to jobs or public safety. Which, if you remember, the sanctions Trump put on Iran, which basically bankrupted them, the geopolitical ramifications of him sanctioning Iran basically made it so any terrorist group in the Middle East didn't have funding because they weren't getting money from the Obama administration and Biden. They basically couldn't make their own money through their own technology and their own economy because they weren't getting it from anywhere else and they weren't allowed to expand their own economy. Trump basically sanctioned them to where they couldn't grow their economy to send the money anywhere to basically start a war. And they couldn't basically build their own military or rocket systems, which now they have because they've made tens of billions after the sanctions were lifted. So people just really, they watch CNN and they hear usually an edited clip or a clip that was just taken out of context, where he never said all Mexicans are rapists. He said that there are Mexicans coming from Mexico illegally that either were rapists in Mexico or have raped people, or I guess women in the US. Which with Lake and Riley, that's a perfect example. Or as Biden likes to say, Lincoln Riley. Because he's just mentally gone. He's been mentally gone since before the 2020 election, by the way. Or anyone saying that Biden quickly deteriorated is just not paying attention because he couldn't speak 4.5 years ago at this point. And one of the things that baffles me the most is that not only are they taking the word of a liar in Michael Cohen, who's a thief also, so he's a liar and a thief, perjurer, but they're also taking the word from a lying whore. Which it also came out that the little flirtiness that they had together with, I believe it was a newspaper or a magazine, where, Trump said, oh yeah, you can slap me with the magazine, and apparently she did it, so she was into it, and obviously he's rich, so she's gonna be into it. So she goes from snorting all this BS back in the day to then writing in a legal document that they never did anything together, back to now, or it's probably just because she needs the money and she's too washed up to go back into the prawn industry. So she's probably doing this to possibly get some book sales in the future, maybe get some TV spots, get some more attention in the limelight, all that bullshit. And not to mention his other cases, which are all BS as well. The Georgia case, which it's funny how the one that indicted Trump also claimed that the 2020 election was rigged within parts of Georgia, which is kind of funny because she's doing the same thing that Trump did, but he's getting indicted and she's not, which is just great because it all came out that she's been, basically getting boyfriend services, so to say, from the guy who was actually not fit for the job. I believe he only had like a handful of small cases. Definitely not worthy of indicting a former president and future president at that. Which it was great seeing all the people in Fulton County basically yelling at the top of their lungs as Trump drove by in the motorcade after he was arraigned. And then also the ninjas for Trump guy That was hilarious. He is one of the funniest people I've ever seen on the internet. That guy's based. And then you look at Judge Angron, another corrupt judge, who has no history in real estate, said that an 18 or 17 or 18 acre property in South Florida, double beachfront, with 62,000 square feet of interior space. He said it was $18 million. Now you can go on the websites like Zillow, I think it's called Zillow, and other websites like that, and search for homes, search for properties. There was, I believe, a quarter acre, basically maybe like 3-4 minutes away, for $200 million. And guess what? There wasn't even a property on it. There wasn't even a house. It was just land for $200 million. And somehow his 18-acre house is only $18 million. So it's $1 million an acre. But that one is what, like 800? I don't even know how to do that math right now. Which not only it's double beachfront, which is extremely rare, especially in a place like that where it's prime real estate. That's a sort of area where you have houses that were used in things like The Godfather, which I think Mar-a-Lago was actually using The Godfather, if I'm not mistaken. But it's also used as a business, would make the value go up, whether it's a lot or slightly. But it just doesn't make any sense that judge, who has no prior knowledge of anything to do with real estate, could look at that and say that it's worth $18 million. Now, you could also say that the judge is even more wrong because the market dictates how much the house is. If Trump wanted to sell it for $1.2 billion, which, that is a lot, but it's debatable that he could do it. If someone buys it, no one really has the right to say that it's not worth that, because it's basically worth whatever anyone will pay. And then when you look at the other case with the documents, it's interesting that Biden was allowed to have documents, even though he was never the president, which right there, that's illegal to have classified documents if you're not the president, because the only person that can take classified documents is the president under the Presidential Records Act, which idiots will say that doesn't allow the president to take his own documents, which include classified documents, because once he takes it, it is basically declassified by default. And this was confirmed in the Sox case, where Clinton basically recorded conversations about classified information and didn't really have it in a secure area in his sock drawer. And I believe it was Jesse Jackson. I know her last name is Jackson. I can't remember her first name. She said that everything he did was fine because the president has full authority. He is the executive, and he has the right to have those documents, and said that they are his own documents, his personal records. So Biden is allowed to take them, keep them in his garage where they're not secure, keep them in Chinatown where, him and his son are basically Chinese assets, probably selling information to the Chinese. And he had, 2 or 3 other sets of boxes somewhere else that weren't very secure. I believe at a university. I can't remember what the name of the university is, but he had one at a university. I think it was in Pennsylvania, why do you have so many boxes of documents in different areas that aren't secure? I would understand if you had different sets of documents in different safes around the country. That would make sense. but they're just randomly there. You can literally stand outside of his garage, or you could at the time. You could literally stand outside of his garage when he was backing out his convertible Corvette and see the box of documents. Now, I've had my bike stolen from within my garage before. So it is extremely easy for even a delinquent to steal those documents if he wanted to. Now, if you had a professional, let's say a Chinese spy, which we knew that there was a Chinese spy driving around a California official for, I believe, I think it was like 20 years, and they didn't even know. Can't remember her name, but it is a woman, and a Chinese asset, basically a Chinese spy, was her driver for all, I think, 20 years, which is just insane. And extremely stupid people that I've seen say this, say, oh, but he gave them back because they asked. And I'm like, if someone steals a car and then someone asks for it back, is the crime just gone? It's void? There's now no further legal action that takes place, especially if it was reported. If it was reported to the police, apparently all you have to do is give the car back, and you're off scot-free, right? So he was able to steal documents because he had no authority of having them, and he gave them back, and that's it, right? But Trump, who has the Presidential Records Act under him and on his side, he's getting charged for that, even though he had every right to have them. So it just seems that every single indictment, every single charge against him is all political. It's all persecution. It's not even prosecution at this point. It's just complete persecution. None of it makes sense. It's all to drag him down in the election process. It's all to get people to... It's basically just to demonize him and get people to hate him. Which, for years, black people have always said, oh, the cops go after us for no reason, and cops hate us, and the feds hate us, and all that. And they see this rich guy, who the left hates, who the news hates, and they're going after him. And when they see him get a mugshot, they're like, damn, I feel that. So they think it's going to hurt him, but I think it's backfiring on them, because not only are his polls going up, people are seeing the deep corruption within DC. And there's something I've always been curious about. People will claim that Trump is a part of the establishment. And I'm like, usually when there's a fall guy, it usually happens pretty quick, and then there's another fall guy next, which you could argue Biden is the fall guy because he's completely gone. He can't even function. He can't even walk properly. Probably can't even shit by himself at this point. But they say he's on their side, or he's a part of them, when he's really the only one that everyone hates. They're all scared of him. He turns world leaders into little schoolgirls from horror movies. If you watch I believe it was the NATO summit a few years ago, it was a speech he gave, and you can just tell by the look in their faces that they know that they can't do shit to this guy. And if he's in charge, they're not going to be able to screw him over. And that's why they hate him, because he's a true leader, and they know that they won't be able to step all over America, and even other countries at this point. You can even look at other trash leaders, garbage people, like Trudeau and the guy that runs the WEF, Klaus Schwab. People like them. I guess the Chancellor of Germany, that absolute witch. People like them hate Trump. Weak people that want power and basically want to screw us over. You know, the brownouts in Germany. That's basically all they get now. And you can also look at Trudeau. Whenever Xi Jinping says anything to him, Trudeau walks away with his fucking tail between his legs, walking away like a fucking wimp. An absolute joke of a person. I don't know. I just don't know how people don't see through it. Obviously, some people do, but the people that watch CNN and MSNBC, ABC, all that garbage, they still believe most of it. But getting back to the case, with that legal document that Stormy Daniels signed, is that voided? Is that null and void now? Or has she perjured herself for now saying that it happened? After also being sued for defamation, I believe around $500,000. So is she going to go to jail for perjuring herself after signing a legal document saying that nothing happened between them? Which, by the way, like I said before, if something did, I don't really care. They didn't do anything illegal. And again, the hush money is not illegal. Basically an NDA. I don't know. It's just crazy how these batshit insane people, these people that they look unwell. Like this woman claims she can talk to dead people and something about her boyfriend or whatever. I don't even remember what that was. It was so stupid. But apparently she's a medium now. She can talk to dead people, which I call her ghost face because she almost looks dead at this point. I wouldn't say she's clearly mentally ill, but she's on her way there. And then you have a liar, a thief, perjured himself, stole from his old boss or his old client tens of thousands of dollars, basically a year's salary on an above average job, went to prison for lying, which I don't know why they brought a liar onto the stand. Then you have a corrupt judge who has a conflict of interest, not only because of his daughter, which I'll summarize that in a second again, but he's a clear partisan judge, friends with Democrats basically only, back from, I can't remember if it was the Clinton era or the Obama administration, but anyway, clearly a partisan hack, and his daughter is a Democrat operative. I don't know how this audio is going to turn out. If it sucks, I'm sorry, but I tried. It's my first time doing it, so I guess can only get better in the future. If you stuck around to the end, just give your opinions in the comments and what you think about all this. I think it's pretty crazy, pretty stupid. It's all a waste of time, but if you guys disagree or if you agree, you can say it in the comments. I'd like to hear some different opinions. See if we have any batshit crazy people in the comments, or if we have any base people, or just people in the middle. But yeah, I think that's it.